Good morning. Thanks for joining today. Just a reminder for those of you who are here live that we're going to be recording the first portion of this group. So if you have any comments or questions, feel free to put them in the chat box and then we can discuss once the slides are done. Today's group, we're going to be discussing the 5 love languages. This is based on the books. I think there's multiple books. There's one for children and one for adults, and it's by Gary Chapman and Ross Campbell. Today we're going to be discussing it more along the lines of the love languages with children, but everything I'm saying is obviously applicable to adults as well. And I hope to give some examples for both children and adults. What are love languages? They're basically the language that we speak when we're giving and receiving love. But the key to love languages is finding out what the other person's primary love language is, so that you can give them love the way they want it received. Using myself as an example, my husband's primary love language is physical touch. He likes when I hug and give him a kiss goodbye. He likes when I'm sitting close to him. And we'll get more into what all these love languages are and what they mean. Whereas mine is more around acts of service. And so I prefer when things are, what's the word I'm looking for? Things are done for me. I'm trying to think of a nice way to put it. I prefer when acts are done for me. When really, I know this sounds so stereotypical, but when someone cleans my house, man, do I know they love me, because no one loves to clean. And so for me, that's a way that I know that that person loves me and cares about me, because they respect that I want my house to be nice and tidy and clean. Hopefully the other people in this household do too, but unfortunately it doesn't happen too often. So the key there is what people tend to do is they give love the way they want it received. So when I'm trying to show my children that I love them, or when I'm trying to show my partner that I love him, I will tend to use either gifts or acts of service, because those tend to be higher on my list. And so I might do something nice for my child, or I might go in and clean their room. And in my head, I'm thinking, doesn't that show you that I love you? But if that's not the language that they speak, then they won't receive that feeling of love the way I would, because it's my love language. So for my husband, rather than doing laundry and folding his clothes and putting it all away for him, like, he's very grateful when I do that. But man, does it go a long way when he's just sitting on the couch and I go reach and give him a little peck on the cheek. For him, that's huge. Those are the ways that he knows that I love him. So it's really important to learn someone's love language so that you can learn how to speak it. You can figure out what it is that that person needs in order to understand how much you love them. And we all know how important that is with young children. Why is it important to speak your child's love language? Well, I think we kind of just talked about that. It's so important for children to understand that their parents love them and how much that they love them. It's not always conveyed the way we hope it is. I know for me, I lose my temper sometimes and I get irritated, and I sometimes think, oh gosh, do my kids understand that I'm irritated, but I love them more than anything else on this earth? And I think on days where I'm particularly crabby and haven't slept, I do worry that the message they're getting is that I only love them if they clean the house or listen to me. So I know for me that it's very important to speak my child's love language so that on those days I can still do things that I know will make them see and feel loved. Um, so how does a full emotional love tank affect a child's ability to learn? I'm not going to go too deep into this one. There, could be its own group, but when children have those acts, when someone speaks their love language, they feel emotionally full. They have an emotionally full love tank. Those little things help fill your bucket. If you've ever heard that terminology before, there's some really great books called, how to fill, have you filled a bucket today, or fill a bucket. I think the one fill a bucket. I'll try to put the link with the recorded one. I'll try to put the link below so that you can actually see the books. And then for the people attending live, I can email it out afterwards. But there are great books about how we carry around invisible buckets, and that when someone does something that shows us love, it helps fill that bucket, or it's an act of kindness that someone might do. And so speaking a love language helps fill that bucket. And we know that people do better when they feel better. It helps with mental health and it helps our hearts feel full. And we know that children will develop better and they will learn better when they have an emotionally, when they have a bucket that's filled with love. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm not going too much into the science and research behind it, but there is quite a bit there, and we know how beneficial it is for young children. So what are the actual 5 love languages? Physical touch, words of affirmation, quality time, gifts, and acts of service. So those are our 5. I'm going to go into a little bit of depth with each of them. Physical touch. Studies indicate that many parents touch their children only when it's necessary. Babies who are held, hugged, and kissed develop a healthier emotional life than those who are left for long periods of time without physical contact. If you've ever heard of non-organic failure to thrive, I think that is called failure to thrive. We know that little babies that have health conditions are more likely to survive if they're being held and touched. Physical touch is such a basic human need. As we've gone through, a couple of years now of a pandemic, we can see, not having family and friends that we can actually physically touch has affected us. And I know when I started to get back into hugging people again, I was like, wow, I didn't realize how much I was missing this until I was allowed to do it again. So I think that there's lots of studies showing that physical touch and the need to have proximity to people is just so important for our emotional health. Children need plenty of touches during their first few years. Any mom has probably been told at the hospital with breastfeeding or just having skin to skin contact. I know my husband was obsessed with it when my daughter was little. I remember he just constantly had her on his chest and feeling his heartbeat. And, we know that that helps a child thrive and grow. As babies grow and become more active, the need for touch does not lessen. Hugs, kisses, wrestling on the floor, riding, piggyback, other playful, loving touches are vital to a child's emotional development. And boys and girls need physical affection, yet studies show that young boys tend to receive less than girls, right? We tend to, do the toxic masculinity or whatever it might be of assuming that boys don't need hugs and kisses. I found the opposite to be true. Having a boy and a girl has shown me the differences. And man, can I tell you, just looking at my son and my nephews, and pretty much any boy mom that I've talked to, we've all kind of agreed that, wow, I was really surprised at how much physical affection my son needs. In fact, it's far greater than what my daughter ever requests. So gender does not play a role in how much physical touch a child needs. We will go into this a little bit later, but love languages develop and they change. So if someone said to me, well, what's a newborn's love language? And I would say without a doubt, it's physical touch. That's what that child needs more than anything, to know that they are safe and that they are loved, right? Physical touch, food, comfort, all of that is sort of vital to survival for a newborn. So all of us are born having this love language. It will change and develop through the years for some people and others not, but it's so, so important. In communicating love, words are powerful. So words of affirmation are another love language, I should say, that is just so important and can become a big one for most people. Their words of affection. Children receive emotional messages through the tone of voice, kindness, emotional warmth, and love. Words of sincere approval is meaningful. Words of encouragement are so, so important with young children. Give children the courage to try more, do more. We always want to be encouraging them. Words of guidance help children develop the qualities that we need in the future. On the other hand, cutting words, name calling, labeling, insults, curses can hurt a child's self-esteem and have them doubt their abilities. Most young children from a very, very young age, next to physical touch, I would say words of affirmation is probably the next most important one. I'm going to say this about all of them. I love how I'm going to go through each of them and say, no, well, actually, this is the most important. But words of affirmation are so important for young children. And it has to come with the right tone and the right body language. I think the body language is more important than anything. If you're encouraging your child and you're like, oh, wow, that's a really great drawing. I said the words, but what I actually communicated through my tone and my body language was that I was being quite sarcastic, or you know, they kids can pick up on the fact that you don't mean what you say. So it's important to have the meaning underlying the words themselves, and to have your body language and your tone of voice match that as well. This follows us into adulthood. I've met many adults where this is their primary love language. They, you know, and even for myself, like, I love hearing acknowledgement. I love hearing the things that I'm doing well. I have talked to a lot of other moms, and we've all sort of agreed, I should say women in general, actually, and hearing compliments can be hard. And I know for me, I get emotionally reactive when someone compliments me, and I'm really quick to say, oh no, they're just, you know, they're just trying to appease me, or they're mocking me, or whatever. Even though I'm quick to turn it down, I know how much I need those compliments and those words of affirmation. They fill my bucket. So I think through the years, sometimes we're taught not to take those compliments, or our self-esteem gets damaged, and then we don't receive them as well as we should, but that doesn't make them any less important. The next one is quality time. When a child's love tank is empty and attention is the only thing that will fill it, the child will go to almost any length to get what they need. We know this. Children who want attention will seek it in positive ways. And if they don't get it in positive ways, they will seek it in negative ways. And by that, I mean, they might say, Mom, Mommy, Mom, can you come play with me? Mom, can you help draw with me? Can you do this coloring? Mom, can we do this together? Can you take me to the park? Mom, and you know, I get a lot of that. And if that doesn't happen, it pretty rapidly turns into Mom, or I hear them in the other room making a mess, or you know, my daughter asked me to color with her, and I say, oh, I can't right now, I'm just cooking dinner, and the next minute I'm looking and she's coloring on the table instead of on the paper. Kids are very quick to react when they don't get quality time, and I'm not saying that means you have to drop everything you're doing all the time. A technique that was taught to me that I think is so valuable is, if as a parent you need to get something done, or you need your own time, what you can first do is sort of flood your child with quality time. So you're giving them maybe 5 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, whatever you can afford at that moment. Maybe it's only 1 minute, where you're just totally focused on them and the activity at hand. And then once they've had their bucket filled with quality time, you can walk away and go do whatever it is you need to do. This one I can already see. My kids are 3 and 5, and I can already see which one of them, you know, needs this time more than the other. So even at this age, I can see that this may not be each of their primary love languages, but it's definitely rated higher for one more than the other. And that's fine. And as they get older, they can play more independently, but when they need you, and you have to kind of try to show up and be there. Children crave undivided attention from their parents. So one of the biggest tools you can use, like what I just said, is if every morning, if you can spare 20 minutes to give them your undivided attention, it's so important to set you up for the day, and they may not ask for much more attention in the rest of the day. So sacrificing, I mean, it's great that you're spending time with them and you should love it, but if you have a lot to do that day, even just putting aside that 20 minutes in the morning is so great, because it'll help them not seek your attention and your time in negative ways. Quality time is a parent's gift of presence to a child. It sends the message that you're important and I like being with you. I know you're going to hear this, and I always get my back up when people tell me not to be on my phone around my kids. My husband points it out all the time. I use my phone to work. I use my phone for pretty much everything. I do feel a little guilty. And I think that if quality time is high on your child's list of, or your partner's list of love languages, it's really important to put your phone down and give them undivided attention. And if you're someone like me who likes having their phone with them and being on their phone a lot, then it's making a point to put that down and say to your child or your partner, like, nope, I'm not looking at this right now. And give yourself a chunk of time where you've promised not to go on your phone or not to go on some sort of device or turn on the TV, and that other person is getting your undivided attention. I think we all need that in order to feel important. There's nothing like being in a meeting or hanging out with a friend and having them look down at their phone the whole time you're together. You're like, why am I here? So your kids and your partner will feel the same way too. If you have several children, you need to look for times when you can be alone with each of them. Quality time, I think it is really important in terms of undivided attention. it will automatically be divided if there's more than one child. So my husband and I make, we do date days with our kids. And so we try to trade off and each take one kid, so that we can spend quality time with them. And it's just so important to develop the relationship and to help them feel important and seen. I find especially my older child, my daughter, she needs it because she had all this great undivided attention before my son was born. And then when he came into the picture, she's like, well, now I get nothing. So she tends to need undivided attention and quality time a little bit more. And so we just make a point to do that with her because it makes her feel happy and special. Gifts. This is a debated one. Some people really get their backs up about this being a love language. And I don't think the intention of gifts is that you're having to spend money. It's not saying you need to buy me things all the time. I don't know that that's healthy, especially in a parent-child relationship. You should not have to buy your child's affection. For this to be effective, the child must feel that the parent genuinely cares. It can be tempting to shower your children with gifts as substitute for other love languages, but it's not about gifts being necessarily a physical or monetary thing. It's not about the cost, it's about the love. They should be a genuine expression of love. My husband grew up in a family where they didn't do gifts for birthdays, even Christmas. He didn't get a lot of gifts. It was just not something that they valued in their home. And whereas I grew up where we didn't get gifts all the time, but certainly birthdays, Christmas, even Valentine's Day, like all those little special occasions, my mom would usually give us a gift. So I learned that to be an expression of love, and gifts is a bigger one for me. It's higher on the list. I'd say it's probably number 2 or 3 for me. And so my husband had a hard time with that, and we had a discussion, and I said, it's not that you're going out and buying me a new car or clothes or a new purse every few months. We said we actually really had to talk this out. We decided on 2 to 3 times a year. I said, Christmas, my birthday, Mother's Day, I'd like a gift, and the gift doesn't have to cost a lot of money. For me, it's about knowing that he's thinking about me. So even having to tell him the 3 dates is kind of hard for me. But I noticed that when, Mother's Day, I was like, I don't even want you to go buy anything. Like, I love if you just make me a card with the kids or make me breakfast in bed. Like, that's a gift to me. And that makes me feel loved, and I can't really help it. And so for him, it's really hard for him to grasp that because it's the bottom of the list for him. And I buy him little gifts all the time. I see he needs new socks, I'll go buy him socks, and he's like, okay, thanks. And to me, that's such an expression of love, but that's my love language, not his. So I think gifts can be a debated one because some people feel like it's very superficial, but it's not. It's about the gesture. It's about the thought that goes into it before you've given the gift. So again, this is one you really need to balance with young children. I've yet to meet a child that doesn't love getting a gift, but we want to make sure we're not overdoing it. And we want to make sure that those gifts have lots of meaning and value, and that we're not being wasteful. And then it's not something that they're just, going to throw out 10 minutes later because they're not interested in it anymore. Acts of service, I mentioned this one already. Don't view acts of service as a way to manipulate your children. Do for your children what they cannot do for themselves. Serve with a spirit of love and generosity versus resentment and bitterness, right? We're not doing these acts and then being completely resentful after we've done it. I think that defeats the purpose of showing love through an act. Be careful your acts of service are not conditional, i.e. only for good behavior. If you're doing something to show love, an act of service, I find especially with like partners, we're not doing it because your partner did something for you first, or because your child, oh, you cleaned your room, so I'm going to do this for you. It's not about a give and take here. The act of service is just doing it because you love the person. I find that when I start to get a little bit angry and resentful about doing a lot in the family home, that I remember that a lot of what I'm doing is not only for me, but it's to show my children that I love them and to help them feel comfortable and safe in their home. And I see that as an act that they might not recognize, they may not see it, but the fact that they don't see it tells me that I'm doing it quite well because they don't know how to live any differently. So yeah, that's the acts of service one. So how do you figure out what your primary love language is? You can take a test. You can buy the book, and the test is in the book. If you're looking for something free, you can take the tests online, and I've got the link there, or you could type it in. For the recorded group, I will try to put a link below as well. So I think there's one for singles, there's ones for husbands, wives, partners. I think that it actually specifically says if it's husband or wife because they phrase it a little bit differently. It doesn't say it, but I'm pretty sure there's tests for children as well, as long as they're 5 years or older. So I know a lot of the groups that we run are meant for children 0 to 6 years old. And I'll talk a little bit how you figure that out in a second. But it's fun. I really enjoy taking the test, and I actually take it every now and then. Because I do find my primary and what order they come in change quite often. I notice for me, what makes it change is if that love language is being met very well. So if my partner, for example, is doing lots of acts of service, I don't crave that as being my number one because it's something that is just already being met so often that maybe gifts gets bumped to number one, or words of affirmation will get bumped to number one. So it is interesting to do, and doing it every now and then, especially with kids once they get to an age where they can actually do the test. It's great to do them quite often because we grow and we change, and our primary love language can change. And so if we want to help the people around us love us in the way we want to be loved, it's useful to take that test. Things to keep in mind: discovering your child's love language is a process. Primary love languages can temporarily change, and they're not set in stone. Your child needs to learn to give and receive love in all the languages. So just because you deem words of affection, words of affirmation, as being a primary for your child, doesn't mean they don't need the other love languages. In fact, my experience has been is everyone needs all 5 love languages. They simply place it in order of importance. Like I said, for my partner, gifts is last for him, but that doesn't mean he doesn't want to receive gifts or that he doesn't appreciate it. It still makes him feel loved, just not as much as, say, physical touch. So what are some ways you can continue to discover your child's love language, especially under the age of 5? What I say to parents is there's no test. So you as a parent can go through each love language and just say, oh, does my child do this? Do they crave this? So you can observe how the child expresses love to you and others. My daughter loves to make drawings and give them to people. And to me, I'm thinking, oh, that's a gift, right? She'll make bracelets and give them, and do little crafts and picture frames. And so she's really big on giving gifts, especially thoughtful handmade ones. So for her, I can see that gifts is a love language. So just paying attention to your kids, and you can probably come upon it quite fast. Like I said, physical touch tends to be the biggest one for the younger the child is. Listen to what your child requests most often. What are they asking, right? Like a lot of kids will request quality time of you. It might be because you're not giving enough of it, but if you feel like you are, it could just be that that's really high up on their list. I think I said before, like some kids need a lot of quality time and some only need a little bit. And that usually can tell us whether or not it's a primary love language for them. And then notice what your child most frequently complains about. Do they complain that you're on your phone? Do they complain that you don't play with them enough, right? Then we know that quality time is there. Do they complain that you don't give them enough cuddles or hugs and kisses? Then we know physical touch might be an issue for them. So these 3 indicators will help you figure out, not necessarily in the order of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but it'll definitely give you an idea of where your child lies in terms of maybe the top 2 or 3 more important ones. Final thoughts is just that if you have any follow-up questions, you can give us a call at 604-436-9449. That's our general admin desk, and they can sort of point you in the right direction of which programs at our agency might be the most helpful for you. You can also give us an email at admin@camray.ca, which is our general email. For the parent support program, our email is pspgroupsignup@camray.ca, and that's specifically for parents living in Burnaby or New West who have a child who is under the age of 5, or that that the parent is expecting. And so, there's individual parent sessions where we can go through this material and figure out how it applies to you and your family. But there's also lots of other questions that can come up. So feel free to contact us if you have any questions about this or any of our other groups. For those joining the recorded part of this, thank you so much for joining us today.